The first time it happened, I tried to convince myself I was dreaming. I'd just come home from a weekend trip, bags still in the truck, when I noticed movement in the backyard. My hot tub cover was tossed haphazardly on the grass. And there, splashing and shrieking with glee, were 3 kids I'd never seen before. Perched on a lawn chair like she was supervising her private resort was none other than Karen Whitfield, our HOA president, sipping a drink and waving at me as if this was some kind of neighborly arrangement. "They needed to cool off," she shouted over the jets. My jaw nearly hit the deck. "Karen, that's not a pool, it's my private hot tub. What the hell are you doing back here?" She rolled her eyes and said, "Relax. The HOA has a shared use policy for recreational features if they're underutilized. You're never home on weekends." I was stunned not just by the audacity, but by the fact that she'd clearly broken into my gated backyard to do it. When I told her to get out, she laughed and said, "They'll be done in 10 minutes. Don't make this a big thing." 10 minutes turned into half an hour, and by the time they finally left, I was seething. The next day, I found a passive-aggressive notice of violation taped to my door. According to Karen, my recreational facility was neglectfully underused, and therefore subject to temporary reassignment under HOA bylaws. I'd read those bylaws front to back, and nothing like that existed. That's when I knew this wasn't ignorance. This was Karen's way of claiming control over anything she wanted. I started with the obvious, installing discrete cameras around my property. Within a week, I had footage of her unlocking my backyard gate with a key she shouldn't have had later. I'd learned she'd convinced a fence contractor to give her a duplicate for emergency compliance checks. But here's where the twist came in. While reviewing the footage, I spotted something else. On one occasion, after bringing her kids over, she'd invited 2 other board members to join her for drinks in the hot tub, right in the middle of a weekday. That meant this wasn't just an overstep, it was potential HOA corruption, misusing her position for personal perks. I knew simply confronting her wouldn't work. Karen thrived on conflict she thought she could control. So I decided to flip the script. I invited a few trusted neighbors over one Saturday afternoon, and we staged an early boil in the hot tuba New England-style lobster cookout, complete with corn, potatoes, and the unmistakable smell of seafood in the air. I cranked the temperature to its maximum safe heat and set up chairs on the patio, making sure the event was loud enough to draw attention. Sure enough, Karen showed up at the gate 15 minutes later, her kids in tow, wearing swimsuits. The moment she saw the lobsters bobbing in the steaming water, she froze. "What is this?" she demanded. I smiled, ladling broth over the shellfish. "A private gathering on my private property. You know, the one you've been using without permission." Her face flushed. "This is unsanitary. You're ruining the tub." I raised my phone, already recording. "Funny. You didn't seem concerned about sanitation when your kids were swimming in here after you broke in." By then, half the neighborhood had drifted over, drawn by the smell and the scene. One man muttered loudly, "Guess she won't be bringing the board here anymore." Karen's eyes darted to the cameras mounted under my eaves, then to the cluster of neighbors whispering and smirking. She turned on her heel and stormed off, but the damage was done. People had seen enough to start asking questions. The following Monday, I emailed the footage to the HOA treasurer and vice president, along with a formal complaint citing trespassing, misuse of HOA authority, and property damage. I knew the treasurer, Mrs. Alvarez, had been chafing under Karen's leadership for years. What I didn't expect was how quickly she'd act within 48 hours. An emergency meeting was scheduled to discuss board conduct. The community hall was packed the night of the emergency meeting. People who normally avoided HOA gatherings were crammed shoulder to shoulder, the air thick with anticipation. Mrs. Alvarez sat at the head table, gavel in hand, looking more confident than I'd ever seen her. Karen, on the other hand, looked rattled, sitting stiffly with a stack of papers in front of her, glancing toward the door like she was already plotting an escape. Mrs. Alvarez wasted no time. "We're here to address allegations of misconduct by HOA President Karen Whitfield. These include unauthorized use of a resident's private property, misuse of HOA access keys, and potential abuse of authority for personal benefit. Then she looked straight at me. "Would you care to present your evidence?" I stood, heart pounding but voice steady, and played the video on a projector for everyone to see. The footage was crystal clear: Karen unlocking my gate, her kids splashing in the hot tub, the board members lounging with drinks. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the room. Then came the clip from the lobster boil. Laughter broke out when Karen's stunned reaction filled the screen. Karen shot to her feet. "This is taken out of context. The bylaws allow," but she stopped when Mrs. Alvarez slammed the gavel. "The bylaws do not grant you ownership of other people's property, and you know it. You violated the trust of this community." Then came the surprise twist. One of the board members from the video, Mr. Collins, stood up and admitted that Karen had pressured him to participate, threatening to fine him over a fabricated landscaping violation if he refused. That opened the floodgates. Neighbors began sharing their own stories of being coerced, fined without cause, or intimidated into silence. It was like years of bottled-up frustration were spilling out all at once. The motion to remove her as president passed with a unanimous show of hands. Hers was the only one down. She was stripped of her position on the spot, and Mrs. Alvarez announced that the HOA would be turning over all security keys to a neutral third-party locksmith. But Karen's troubles didn't end there. My trespassing complaint to the police, combined with multiple witness statements from that night, led to misdemeanor charges for unlawful entry and property damage. She was fined heavily and ordered to pay for the replacement of my hot tub cover and filter system damage caused by her uninvited guests. The next time I saw her was months later, walking past the neighborhood park. She didn't make eye contact, didn't speak, just kept her head down and moved quickly. The swagger, the smirk, the sense of untouchable authority, they were all gone. Our neighborhood, on the other hand, began to heal. Without Karen's constant surveillance and intimidation, people relaxed. We started holding block parties, shared tools and garden produce, even opened the community pool without the endless compliance checks she used to conduct. Mrs. Alvarez turned out to be a fair and approachable president, and the HOA became what it was always meant to be: a way to support the community, not control it. As for my hot tub, it's off-limits except to friends and neighbors I actually invite. And yes, every summer we host a lobster boil, not as a provocation, but as a celebration. The same neighbors who once whispered about Karen's wrath now laugh together over plates of seafood, clinking glasses in the backyard she once claimed as her own playground. Looking back, I realized that Karen's overreach wasn't just a personal insult, it was the spark that finally lit the fire for change. By standing up to her, I didn't just reclaim my space. I helped the whole neighborhood take theirs back too. What about you? Was turning my hot tub into a lobster boil the perfect way to shut her down? Or should I have gone for a quieter, less public revenge?